Welcome to this week's episode of the podcast. If you're a new listener, I'm so excited that you're here. Welcome to the inner group chat. And if you're a returning listener, I'm so glad you came back because we have so much to catch up on. This podcast episode nearly didn't ever happen, ever. I nearly thought I was going to have to pause the podcast for like a seriously long amount of time because, guys, I've had the most insane... So, let me get you back to the start. This week's podcast, we are talking about lucky and a lucky mindset and being lucky because I am a firm believer that being lucky is a mindset, that it is something that you just decide. And I know you are going to say, Bella, no, that's not the case. Hear me out, okay? The reason I thought this podcast might never ever happen again is because my bag with my laptop, my camera, my mics, my tripod, basically everything I need to create content was lost. £2,000 worth of equipment lost. No one knew where it was. No one knew where it was. I didn't lose it, okay? This is the pinch point. I wasn't the one that left it. So I didn't either know where it was. And I couldn't even be like, okay, retrace your steps, Bella, what have you done? Because I didn't lose it. So the thing was, I'll give you some context. The bag was meant to be brought back to Manchester. I went to Prague, thought it's fine, left the bag, it was all okay. The bag didn't end up in Manchester and we thought we've just left it back at home, back in our hometown because we went back for Easter. Thought it's absolutely fine, don't worry about it. So then when our friends were meant to bring back the bag with them back to Manchester, they called us up and they said the bag isn't there. The bag is not there. And we said, what do you mean the bag isn't there? The bag has to be there. The bag wasn't there. The bag was nowhere to be found. We searched high and low. I sent my family on a wild goose chase around my hometown, going to every single, because we went with the bag to a pub. Then I'd wondered, have I left it in the pub? We asked the pub to check their CCTV, checked the CCTV, wasn't there. No one knew where this bag was. Now, the cornerstone of this, or like the little detective clue thing that my mum worked out, is that we'd eaten the Easter egg that was in the bag at my boyfriend's house, which means it must have got to my boyfriend's house, which means we couldn't have left it in the pub. But it wasn't at the boyfriend's house. They checked it high and low. It was not at the boyfriend's house. My boyfriend's house. So honestly, at this point I was giving up hope because it wasn't at the house, it wasn't in any places that we'd been, it wasn't on the train, we called up the station, wasn't at the station, it wasn't anywhere. So I put out a plea on social media just being like, I've lost my bag and I need TransPennines help, because my thought was, I'll look at the CCTV and see if we actually even brought it on the train, because no one knew where we'd lost the bag, and that was kind of the hardest part. No one knew where it was, so we couldn't even know where to check because no one knew where we'd left it. So anyway, post the plea, it goes like not viral, but gains quite a lot of traction. So people start tagging TransPennine. I love you all for doing that. They get in touch, give me the name of a helpline that I call them, they help me. And it turns out, even though we'd been to the station that morning and asked, is my bag here? And they said no. When the person called them up and they checked, customer services, it was there. So the person at the beginning of the shift hadn't realised it was there, and then the people on shift had swapped. And it turned out the guy who'd actually found my bag had been on shift, was on shift then, and so knew exactly what we were talking about and had my bag ready to go, which meant that we can now record this podcast together, because otherwise I wasn't going to be able to record the podcast because all I had was a mic and I didn't even know how to plug it into my laptop. It was honestly a really stressful 24 hours because I kept going around these cycles of like, it's not really that bad, I'll just buy myself new stuff, it's okay, and then being like, Bella, you can't afford new stuff. You can't afford new stuff. What are you going to do? What are you going to do? So that was the slight stressful moment. Quite stressful moment, to be honest, but how lucky that it all got handed in and everything was there. Even my cold and flu medicine was there. What are the chances of that being taken? Because that is an expensive thing. Cold and flu tabs, they are pricey. Not as pricey as my camera was in there, the laptop was in there. And so I firmly believed that being lucky is a mindset. And I've recorded a video that I'm posting on Tuesday, which you'll have seen by now, about all of the lucky things that happened this week, which, irony of ironies, so I made a video at the start of the week being like, I'm going to record all of the lucky things that happened this week. Here they are. It ended up being the luckiest week of my life because my laptop got returned, my camera got returned, my mics got returned, £2,000 worth of equipment got returned. And it just reminded me that, like, I know there is a lot of bad in the news at the moment, but there is also good. There is also good people. There is also, you've got to believe that there are more good people than bad people, I feel. And so that was my very happy, great moment of this week. And it's why I wanted to talk to you about lucky being a mindset, because I think I manifested that laptop returning. I'm not going to lie. I went proper in on my manifestation and it was a bit embarrassing. Okay, I did send it a bit far. I was going all in. I was leaving no stone unturned. I did everything humanly possible that I thought to manifest it, because I was like, I've got to put my all into this. I've got to really, really put my all into it. And then when it all worked out, I thought, everyone makes fun of manifestation until they manifest something that is so incredibly lucky and ridiculous. And then everyone thinks you're silly until that happens. And look what happened. My £2,000 worth of everything got returned. And so this is why I think like manifestation and being lucky in your mindset. And having that type of like positive way of looking at things and expecting the best case scenario and channeling the energy of the best case scenarios is actually important. Because I think I've manifested some pretty big things in my life. I think I manifested my first class degree. I think I manifested passing my driving test. Definitely manifested collecting all of these things. And you could say, well, would those have things happened without you doing it? Maybe. Maybe they would have, but we'll never know. Because I put my heart and soul into manifesting them into my life. And I think loads of people make manifesting quite, it's basically just believing. You've just got to so intensely believe that it's all going to work out, and you've just got to take action that makes it look like you truly believe. You know, I want all this podcast and social media to work out like I am manifesting that becomes really successful. And so the actions that I'm taking to make it successful are recording a weekly podcast, posting on social media regularly, engaging with my management, making sure that is actually something that it could be, and taking aligned action alongside those goals. It's not just enough to wish, we also have to take action. But the wishing, it's not just like, I wish this would happen. It's like, I know this would happen. The words you use around manifestation matter too. And when you decide that you're going to be lucky, when you decide that you're going to have a lucky week, whether or not those things would happen anyway, I think it just makes everything feel a bit more magical. And I know you're probably going to think I'm being silly, but I feel like sometimes the world is hard enough that thinking that there is like, it's magical is a really positive, nice thing. I don't hate it. Because recording that video of all of the lucky things that have happened this week, honestly, there's been so many. I got accidentally given the seat with extra legroom on my Ryanair flight. One big check. We got through airport control within 10 minutes. Passport control, sorry. We literally went in straight away. I got off the plane and I did not stop walking until I got onto my train back to Manchester. I didn't stop once, no queue whatsoever. And there has been horror stories of people travelling back and having like hours and hours and hours of queues. No, not me. Weird other things, I got 2 mints in my pack of 1 mint. I remembered to wash my vintage clothes before I wear it. If you saw that TikTok, how absolutely foul. The water was black and disgusting. So thank God I managed to do that. And I think sometimes we think the lucky good things need to be like these massive, massive life-changing, kind of like the bag returning situation. But I also think the lucky little things matter too, because they remind you like there are little snippets of good. And on this week's Substack post, I decided to talk about that a bit more. If you don't know, my Substack is an advice column where each week I respond to one of your questions, situations, things that you've written in about. And if you want to write in, then please do send your entry to dearbellaadvice@gmail.com, and I will read it and potentially respond in one of my Substack posts. But I've decided that every fourth one, it's going to be an advice column to myself. Like, I'll open up about something because it doesn't feel fair that you guys are all opening up and I don't have to open up. And so this week's Substack post, no, you guys are a week ahead. So this is a week ago's Substack post, is all about how there are good and there is bad, and the good and bad can coexist with each other. And I just was speaking about all of the coexist with each other, because if I'm honest, like, the news has felt pretty heavy recently, and it's been hard, you know. There just feels like there's just been negative after negative after negative, and not just like little negatives, like massive, massive negative things that are happening. And that's been, you know, hard. I found it hard. I found it quite heavy. And yet, despite all of that, I have noticed things of good. There have been elements of good. There have been good news stories. There have been positive things that are happening. And it's not that the good outweighs the bad. I don't think they're a weighing scale. I think it's that good and bad coexist against each other, that there's always been good with the bad and there's always been bad with the good. But the good is sometimes harder to listen to. Then bad kind of feels more all-consuming because our brains have a negative prejudice. They want to listen to the bad news. It wants to protect us. If you imagine yourself like an animal trying to survive, it wants to absorb all the bad things that can happen, so it knows how it needs to program itself. It knows how it needs to look after you. And so we absorb this bad news, but then we forget to think of the good news too. We forget to prioritize that. And it's made me realize how there have been good things that have happened, because when I was writing the Substack, I kind of listed good things that have happened, and I watched this video on Instagram of this principal, and there was a school shooter. Horrific that we even have to say school shooter in the same sentence, like school and shooter. The fact that that is a thing is horrific. And yeah, anyway, this principal, saw the school shooter coming into his school and rugby tackled him, risked his own life to rugby tackle this shooter to the ground so he didn't shoot any of the children. And that reminded me that there is good in the world. And my bag being returned and not a single thing being touched reminded me that there is good in the world. And another piece of good news that happened was Joshua, one of the astronauts on the Artemis 2 mission, suggested that they name this really bright part of the moon that had never been seen before or named before, I'm not entirely sure, Carol, after the commander's late wife who have passed away in 2020. And, he could have named that anything. And he chose to name it after something of significance to someone else, not directly of significance to him. And it just reminded me again of how there are good people in the world. We do care about each other. There are people that care, and the majority of people I genuinely, truly do believe are good. And the final thing is, I think this is perfectly shown in all of the marathons that you'll be seeing right now. You'll be watching them on TV and you'll see strangers cheering for strangers they've never met. You'll see people celebrating running times with people they don't even know the names of. You'll hear people shouting people's names and they have no idea who that person is, because there are more good people in this world that want to celebrate each other and have a good life and be good people than there are bad people. I genuinely believe there are more good people than bad people, and I think it's easy to overlook that. And I'm not saying we shouldn't read the news and we shouldn't be aware of what is happening. I don't think that's the solution. But I think it's also important to listen to the good things that are happening too, and to recognise them and to celebrate them too, because once you start noticing the good gets better. Once you start noticing the good gets better. Just like when you decide you're going to be lucky, you become luckier. Sometimes I think that your brain is just this muscle. Well, it is just a muscle, isn't it? And when you train it to notice patterns, it notices the patterns better. Okay? So if you start noticing a pattern of good things, it notices that pattern more strongly and will promote more good things in your life. And I don't know if you would have had the same experiences beforehand. Who knows? If you go down the manifestation path, then you wouldn't have, because you're becoming more energetically aligned to more positive things, and more positivity is then going to flow into your life. But maybe you would have, maybe you wouldn't have. But I genuinely do think when you decide you're going to be more positive thinking, and it's not just thinking positive about things, like it's noticing the good things, is giving time and energy and value to the good things in life, is spending, time is the most precious thing that we have. Time is the only constraint that we have. Time is the only thing we can't have more of. Okay, so what you choose to give time to is the things that you value, is the things that you prioritize. So the things that you think about, the things that you talk about, the things that you give airtime to, those are the things you find value in. So if you decide to choose those things to be more positive things, I genuinely think you find more positive things in your life. You become luckier, you become happier, you become more abundant. Good things happen to you. Because this week, a crazy good thing has happened to me, and I can't believe it's happened on the week I decided to be lucky. But if anything, that has proved my point that being lucky, deciding that you're lucky, is not just a mindset, it is something that is really, really important. So I challenge you this next week to be lucky. Decide that you're going to be lucky. Decide that you're going to have a lucky week, and let me know what amazing, incredible things end up happening to you, because I'm telling you, it's going to be big. But thank you for listening to this week's podcast episode. Thank you for bearing with me when we had that week off, because I couldn't post the podcast because I had nothing. Make sure you are following me on Instagram and on TikTok at Mel from Bella, and I can't wait to catch up to you next week. And if you are missing the question part of this podcast, let me know, because I could bring it back if we want it, but I kind of like just having all of that on the Substack. And so I'd love it if you could email dearbellaadvice@gmail.com with any questions that you would have liked me to answer here. Thank you for listening. I can't wait to catch up with you next week. I love you. Bye. Mwah.